The warthog stands alone at the edge of a dry clearing, sunlight cutting hard shadows across cracked earth and pale grass stalks. Flies circle its face, landing near the eyes and along the base of the tusks, and the skin along its neck twitches in short, involuntary pulses. Behind the ears and along the folds of the neck, small dark shapes cling to the skin, swollen and still, each one fixed in place by mouthparts buried deep in the tissue. These are ticks, engorged with blood, some of them nearly the size of a coffee bean, gripping onto areas the warthog cannot easily reach with its own body. It shakes its head hard, ears slapping against its skull with an audible crack, then stops and stands rigid for a moment before shaking again. The movement dislodges a fly or two, but does nothing for the ticks buried in the thick skin behind the ears. A warthog's own grooming options are limited. Its legs are short, its neck does not bend far enough to reach its own shoulders, and its snout, built for rooting through soil rather than picking at skin, cannot pluck a tick free the way a primate's fingers might. The animal walks a few steps toward a leaning acacia trunk, worn smooth and pale near its base from repeated use, and presses its shoulder against the bark. It rubs back and forth, grunting quietly, applying enough pressure to peel away flakes of dead skin and loosen a layer of dried mud from an earlier dust bath. This kind of tree rubbing is common among warthogs living in dry savanna habitat, where termite mounds, fallen logs, and exposed roots serve as fixed points for scratching backs, flanks, and shoulders that legs and jaws cannot reach. Ticks in this environment tend to concentrate in specific regions of a large mammal's body. The ears, the base of the tail, the groin, the armpits, and the folds of skin around the neck offer thin skin, reduced airflow, and shelter from a host's own defensive movements. A warthog's belly and the deep creases where its legs meet its torso create similar pockets, warm and difficult to see, let alone scratch. These same regions are where ticks in this scene remain attached, even after the warthog's efforts at the acacia trunk. Nearby, a shallow depression in the soil holds a layer of fine, powdery dust, and the warthog drops to its front knees before rolling onto one side. Dust rises around its body as it twists and kicks, coating its bristled hide in a pale film. Dust bathing serves several functions for warthogs, including temperature regulation in exposed savanna heat and a partial deterrent to biting insects, since a thick coat of dry particles can make it harder for some parasites to grip bare skin. The warthog stands, shakes once more, and a cloud drifts off its back, but the ticks already embedded near its ears and along its neck folds remain in place. Dust bathing reduces new attachments more than it removes ticks already feeding. For several minutes, the warthog grazes on short grass near the clearing, kneeling forward on its front legs in the posture typical of the species while it crops vegetation close to the ground. Its tail flicks occasionally, and every few minutes it pauses to scratch a hind leg against its own ribs, twisting awkwardly, achieving only partial relief. The parasite load visible along its ears and neck does not change through any of this. A banded mongoose appears at the edge of the clearing, moving low and fast between clumps of dry grass, nose working across the ground. It stops, lifts its head, and studies the resting warthog from a distance of several meters. Banded mongooses live in tight social groups, often numbering between 10 and 20 individuals, and forage together across open ground during daylight hours, using scent and sound to stay in contact as they move. This individual chirps softly, a call other members of its group recognize, and continues forward in short bursts, pausing between each one. The warthog, now lying on its side in a patch of shade, does not react as the mongoose approaches within a meter of its body. Banded mongooses have learned in some regions to associate resting warthogs, buffalo, and other large grazers with a reliable source of food attached to the skin, and their approach here follows a familiar pattern rather than a sudden decision. The mongoose sniffs along the warthog's foreleg, climbs onto the shoulder, and begins moving through the coarse, bristled hair with quick, deliberate motions of its head. 3 more mongooses arrive within a minute, spreading across the warthog's back, neck, and haunches. One works along the base of an ear, parting the surrounding hair with its nose before extracting something small and dark, likely an embedded tick, and consuming it on the spot. Another moves down toward the belly, navigating the loose folds of skin near the groin, an area the warthog itself has never been able to reach directly. A third investigates the space behind a foreleg, close to the armpit, where skin stays warm and slightly damp, and parasites often cluster in higher numbers than on exposed flanks. Banded mongooses locate prey through a combination of smell, hearing, and close visual inspection, often digging with their forepaws or flipping over debris while foraging on open ground. Their diet in the wild consists mainly of invertebrates, including beetles and beetle larvae, termites, millipedes, and grasshoppers, along with spiders, scorpions with the stinger sometimes bitten off first, and occasional small vertebrates such as lizards, frogs, and birds' eggs when they can be found. Ticks pulled from a warthog's skin represent an opportunistic addition to this diet, rather than a primary food source, and a foraging troop encountering a resting warthog will typically spend only a portion of its day engaged in this kind of feeding before moving on to search elsewhere. The warthog shifts its weight and grunts as one mongoose works along a particularly sensitive fold near its hind leg, but it does not rise or bolt. It lies still for most of the encounter, occasionally flicking an ear when a mongoose brushes too close to the inner surface. This tolerance likely reflects some benefit to the warthog in the form of reduced parasite load in areas it cannot clean on its own, though the extent of that benefit varies by encounter and is not something researchers have measured as consistent across every interaction. Some ticks are removed, others remain attached deep enough or in spots awkward enough that the mongooses either miss them or choose not to pursue them. One mongoose climbs briefly onto the warthog's rump before hopping down to inspect a patch of ground disturbed by the warthog's earlier dust bath, sniffing for insects stirred up by the rolling. Another pauses at the base of the tail, working through a dense cluster of hair before moving on toward the spine. The interaction continues for several minutes, with mongooses shifting positions across the warthog's body, occasionally chittering to one another, before their attention gradually turns outward again, toward the grass and leaf litter beyond the warthog's flank, where smaller prey items wait beneath the surface. After a few more minutes, the mongooses begin drifting away in loose formation, noses down, resuming their search across the open ground of the clearing. The warthog remains still a moment longer, then rolls upright, plants its front legs, and pushes itself to standing. It shakes once, ears slapping against its head, and a fine mist of dust lifts off its back. Several dark shapes remain visible along its neck and behind one ear, ticks that were not reached during the encounter, still fixed in place. The warthog turns and walks off toward the tree line at an unhurried pace, tail raised, pausing once to graze before disappearing into taller grass. A warthog's tusks can face down a hyena, and its thick hide can absorb blows that would injure most other mammals its size. None of that offers much defense against a parasite the width of a fingertip, embedded in skin the animal cannot see or reach. For a few minutes on a hot afternoon in the savannah, that gap brought one of Africa's more heavily armored animals into close, motionless contact with a group of mammals a fraction of its size, each one working through coarse hair for a meal it could not have found anywhere else.